Country News, June Carter Cash. Did you know that June Carter Cash was born on June 23, 1929 in Virginia, United States? She was born Valerie June Carter in Maces Spring, Virginia, to Maybelle, née Addington, and Ezra Carter. Her mother was a country music performer with June's Aunt Sarah and Uncle A.P. Carter, and she performed with the Carter family from the age of 10 in 1939. In March 1943, when the Carter family trio stopped recording together at the end of the WBD contract, Maybelle Carter, with encouragement from her husband Ezra, formed the Carter Sisters and Mother Maybelle, with her daughters Helen on accordion, Anita Carter on bass fiddle, and June on autoharp and as frontperson and comedian. The new group first aired on radio station WRNL in Richmond, Virginia, on June 1st. Doc Addington and Carl McConnell, Maybelle's brother and cousin, respectively, known as the Virginia Boys, joined them in late 1945. June, then 16, was a co-announcer with Ken Allen and did the commercials on the radio shows for Red Star Flour, Martha White, and Thalheimer's Department Store, just to name a few. For the next year, 1946, the Carters and Doc and Carl did show dates within driving range of Richmond, through Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. She attended John Marshall High School during this period. June later said she had to work harder at her music than her sisters, but she had her own special talent, comedy. A highlight of the road shows was her Aunt Polly comedy routine. With her thin and lanky frame, June Carter often played a comedic foil during the group's performances alongside other Opry stars Farron Young and Webb Pierce. Carl McConnell wrote in his memoirs that June was a natural-born clown if there ever was one. Decades later, Carter revived Aunt Polly for the 1976 TV series Johnny Cash and Friends. After Doc and Carl dropped out of the music business in late 1946, Maybelle and her daughters moved to Sunshine Sue Workman's Old Dominion Barn Dance on the WRVA Richmond station. After a while there, they moved to WNOX in Knoxville, Tennessee, where they met Chet Atkins with Homer and Jethro. In 1949, the Carter sisters and Mother Maybelle, with their lead guitarist, Atkins, were living in Springfield, Missouri, and performing regularly at KWTO. Ezra Eck Carter, Maybelle's husband and manager of the group, declined numerous offers from the Grand Ole Opry to move the act to Nashville, Tennessee, because the Opry would not permit Atkins to accompany the group on stage. Atkins' reputation as a guitar player had begun to spread, and studio musicians were fearful that he would displace them as a first-call player if he came to Nashville. Finally, in 1950, Opry management relented and the group, along with Atkins, became part of the Opry Company. Here the family befriended Hank Williams and Elvis Presley, to whom they were distantly related, and June met Johnny Cash. June and her sisters, with Mother Maybelle and Aunt Sarah joining in from time to time, reclaimed the name the Carter family for their act during the 1960s and 70s. While June Carter Cash may be best known for singing and songwriting, she was also an author, dancer, actress, comedian, philanthropist, and humanitarian. Director Elia Kazan saw her perform at the Grand Ole Opry in 1955 and encouraged her to study acting. She studied with Lee Strasberg and Sanford Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater in New York. Her acting roles included Mrs. Mama Dewey in Robert Duvall's 1998 movie The Apostle, Sister Ruth, wife to Johnny Cash's character Kid Cole on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, 1993-97, and Clarice on Gunsmoke in 1957. She was notable as May Haley Lancaster, playing alongside husband Cash in the 1983 television movie Murder in Coweta County. June was also Mama James in The Last Days of Frank and Jesse James. She also acted in occasional comedy skits for various Johnny Cash TV programs. As a singer, she had both a solo career and a career singing with first her family and later her husband. As a solo artist, she became somewhat successful with upbeat country tunes of the 1950s, such as Jukebox Blues, and, with her exaggerated breaths, the comedic hit No Swaller in Place by Frank Loesser. June also recorded The Heel in the 1960s along with many other songs. In the early 1960s, June Carter wrote the song Ring of Fire, which later went on to be a hit for her future husband, Johnny Cash. She co-wrote the song with fellow songwriter Merle Kilgore. June wrote the lyrics about her relationship with Johnny Cash, and she offered the song to her sister Anita Carter, who was the first singer to record the song. In 1963, Johnny recorded the song with the Carter family singing backup and added mariachi horns. The song became a #1 hit and went on to become one of the most recognizable songs in the world of country music. In her autobiography, I Walked the Line, Johnny's first wife Vivian Cash disputes the myth that June Carter co-wrote the song, Ring of Fire. Vivian relates the story that Johnny told her in 1963 that he wrote the song with Merle Kilgore and Curly while fishing, and that he was going to give June half credit because she needs the money. And I like her. Her first notable studio performance with Johnny Cash occurred in 1964 when she duetted with Cash on It Ain't Me Babe, a Bob Dylan composition that was released as a single and on Cash's album Orange Blossom Special. In 1967, the two found more substantial success with their recording of Jackson, which was followed by a collaboration album, Carry On with Johnny Cash and June Carter. All these releases predated her marriage to Cash, after which she changed her professional name to June Carter Cash. She continued to work with Cash on recordings and on stage for the rest of her life, recording a number of duets with Cash for his various albums and being a regular on The Johnny Cash Show from 1969 to 1971 and on Cash's annual Christmas specials. After Carry On, June Carter Cash recorded one more direct collaboration album, Johnny Cash and His Woman, released in 1973, and along with her daughters was a featured vocalist on Cash's 1974 album The Junkie and The Juicehead Minus Me. She also shared sleeve credit with her husband on a 2000 small label gospel release, Return to the Promised Land. Although she provided vocals on many recordings and shared the billing with Cash on several album releases, June Carter Cash only recorded 3 solo albums during her lifetime. The first, Appalachian Pride, released in 1975, Press On, 1999, and Wildwood Flower, released posthumously in 2003 and produced by her son, John Carter Cash. Appalachian Pride is the only one of the 3 on which Johnny Cash does not perform, while Press On is notable for featuring June Carter Cash singing her original arrangement of Ring of Fire. One of her final appearances was a non-speaking / non-singing appearance in the music video for her husband's 2003 single, Hurt, filmed a few months before her death. One of her last known public appearances was on April 7, 2003, just over a month before her death, when she appeared on the CMT Flame Worthy Awards program to accept an achievement award on behalf of her husband, who was too ill to attend. She won a Grammy Award in 1999 for Press On. Her last album, Wildwood Flower, won 2 additional Grammys. It contains bonus video enhancements showing extracts from the film of the recording sessions, which took place at the Carter family estate in Hiltons, Virginia, on September 18 to 20, 2002. The songs on the album include Big Yellow Peaches, Sinking in the Lonesome Sea, Temptation, and the trademark staple, Wildwood Flower. Due to her involvement in providing backing vocals on many of her husband's recordings, a further posthumous release occurred in 2014 when Out Among the Stars was released under Johnny Cash's name. The album consists of previously unreleased recordings from the early 1980s, including 2 on which June Carter Cash provides duet vocals. Her autobiography was published in 1979, and she wrote a memoir, From the Heart, almost 10 years later. Carter was married 3 times and had 1 child with each husband. All 3 of her children went on to have successful careers in country music. She was married first to country singer Carl Smith from July 9, 1952, until their divorce in 1956. Together, they wrote Time's A Wastin'. They had a daughter, Rebecca Carleen Smith, known professionally as Carlene Carter, a country musician. June's second marriage was to Edwin "Rip" Nix, a former football player and police officer, on November 11, 1957. They had a daughter, Rosie Nix Adams, on July 13, 1958. The couple divorced in 1966. Rosie was a country/rock singer. On October 24, 2003, Rosie, aged 45, died from accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. She and bluegrass musician Jimmy Campbell were on a school bus, which had been converted for travel. Several propane heaters were being used to heat the bus. Carter and the entire Carter family had performed with Johnny Cash for a number of years. In 1968, Cash proposed to Carter during a live performance at the London Ice House in London, Ontario. They married on March 1st in Franklin, Kentucky. They had one son, John Carter Cash, who is a musician, songwriter, and producer. The couple remained married until her death in May 2003, 4 months before Cash died. She also gained 4 stepdaughters from her third husband's previous marriage to Vivian Liberto, including Cindy and Roseanne. Carter's distant cousin, the 39th U.S. President Jimmy Carter, became closely acquainted with Cash and Carter and maintained their friendship throughout their lifetimes. In a June 1977 speech, Jimmy Carter acknowledged that June Carter was his distant cousin. Carter was a longtime supporter of SOS Children's Villages. In 1974, the Cashes donated money to help build a village near their home in Barretttown, Jamaica, which they visited frequently, playing the guitar and singing songs to the children in the village. June Carter Cash also had close relationships with a number of entertainers, including Audrey Williams, James Dean, Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, Jesse Coulter, Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, Elvis Presley, Robert Duvall, and Roy Orbison. At the end of his life, she and her husband attended the First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Carter and her future husband, Johnny Cash, reached number 2 on the U.S. country charts with their 1967 duet of Jackson. Their performance won the 1968 Grammy Award for Best Country and Western Performance Duet, Trio or Group. The two won the 1971 Grammy Award for Best Country Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group for their 1970 duet If I Were a Carpenter. Carter Cash won the 2000 Grammy Award for Best Traditional Folk Album for her 1999 album Press On. The album was a top 15 success on the Americana chart. Carter Cash's last album, Wildwood Flower, was released posthumously in 2003. Carter Cash won the 2004 Grammy Award for Best Traditional Folk Album, and she also won the 2004 Grammy Award for Best Female Country Vocal Performance for the single Keep on the Sunny Side. June Carter Cash, along with her husband, Johnny Cash, worked with and gave money to the group, SOS Children's Villages, throughout their lives. They began this involvement in 1973 when they donated $12,000, $75,351 in 2022 terms, to build an orphanage in a Jamaican village close to their home in that country. They would visit the nearby village during their time spent in Jamaica and play with the children and sing songs to them. When Johnny Cash died in 2003, their family asked that donations be made to the SOS Children's Villages due to the couple's involvement. In a quote from a representative of the Prime Minister of Jamaica at the time, P.J. Patterson, talks about their charitable works in the country, a philanthropist extraordinaire. Mrs. Cash made Jamaica her second home and loved and cared deeply for the people of her adopted country. A gifted and talented singer, she and her husband, Johnny Cash, used the very talents for the benefit of many charities in and around Montego Bay. In April 2003, Carter was diagnosed with a leaky heart valve, and doctors told her that valve replacement surgery was the only solution for her issue. She had the surgery on May 7th. However, complications arose and her health deteriorated rapidly over the next few days. She died on May 15, 2003, at the age of 73. She was surrounded by her family, including her husband of 35 years, Johnny Cash. Public funeral services were held at the First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee. At Carter's funeral, her stepdaughter Rosanne Cash stated, "If being a wife were a corporation, June would have been a CEO. It was her most treasured role." Johnny Cash died of complications from diabetes on September 12th. Carter's daughter Rosie Nix Adams died on October 24th. All three are buried at the Hendersonville Memory Gardens near their home in Hendersonville, Tennessee. In 2003, Carter was included by Country Music Television on their list of the 40 greatest women of country music. Thanks so much, June, for your contribution to country music.